The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden glow over the quiet suburban street. The air was thick with the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant hum of a lawnmower. It was the kind of day that felt peaceful, almost too peaceful, as if the world was holding its breath. But in the distance, the low rumble of motorcycle engines began to grow louder, shattering the tranquility. A group of bikers, clad in leather jackets and bandanas, rolled into the neighborhood like a storm cloud. Their presence was ominous, their intentions unclear. And then they spotted him. A tall, broad-shouldered black man standing on the sidewalk, his eyes calm but watchful. The bikers exchanged glances, revved their engines, and made their move. What they didn't know was that this man wasn't just any man. He was a force to be reckoned with, and they were about to learn that lesson the hard way. The man's name was Marcus. He had been out for a walk, enjoying the rare moment of solitude that his busy life afforded him. As a former Marine and now a self-defense instructor, Marcus was no stranger to conflict, but he had long since learned to pick his battles. He noticed the bikers the moment they turned onto the street. Their aggressive posture and the way they slowed down as they approached him set off alarm bells in his mind. Still, he remained calm, his hands loose at his sides, his breathing steady. The leader of the bikers, a burly man with a shaved head and a sneer plastered across his face, pulled up alongside Marcus. "You lost, big guy," he taunted, his voice dripping with mockery. The other bikers chuckled, their engines idling menacingly. Marcus didn't flinch. "Just out for a walk," he replied, his voice calm but firm. "You fellas need something?" The leader's sneer deepened. "Yeah, we need you to get out of our neighborhood. You don't belong here." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Last I checked, this was a public street. I've got just as much right to be here as you do." The bikers exchanged glances, clearly not used to being challenged. The leader revved his engine, the sound echoing like a warning shot. "You've got 3 seconds to turn around and walk away," he growled. "Or else." Marcus didn't move. He simply stood there, his gaze steady, his body relaxed but ready. The bikers, emboldened by their numbers and their bikes, misread his calmness for fearlessness. They didn't see the way his muscles tensed, the way his eyes tracked their every move. They didn't realize that Marcus was assessing the situation, calculating the angles, preparing for what was to come. The leader's patience snapped. "Fine. Have it your way," he snarled, swinging his leg off the bike and stepping toward Marcus. The other bikers followed suit, forming a loose semicircle around him. They were confident, cocky even, but Marcus saw the cracks in their bravado. They were used to intimidating people, not fighting someone who could fight back. The first swing came from the leader, a wild haymaker that Marcus sidestepped with ease. The biker stumbled forward, off balance, and Marcus used the opportunity to deliver a sharp elbow to the back of his neck. The man crumpled to the ground, groaning. The other bikers hesitated, their confidence wavering, but they quickly rallied and charged at Marcus. What followed was a blur of motion. Marcus moved with the precision and efficiency of someone who had spent years honing his skills. He blocked a punch from one biker, disarmed another who had pulled a knife, and swept the legs out from under a third. Within moments, the bikers were on the ground, nursing bruises and egos. The leader, still dazed, looked up at Marcus with a mixture of fear and disbelief. You're not just some guy," he stammered. Marcus crouched down, his face inches from the leader's. "No, I'm not. And neither are the people you usually try to intimidate. Remember that the next time you think about picking a fight." With that, Marcus stood up and walked away, leaving the bikers to pick themselves up and limp back to their bikes. The neighborhood was quiet again, the only sound the distant hum of the lawnmower. But the bikers would never forget the lesson they had learned that day. That appearances can be deceiving, and that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most dangerous. As Marcus continued his walk, he couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. He hadn't wanted to fight, but he also hadn't been willing to back down. He knew that his actions had sent a message not just to the bikers, but to anyone who might have been watching. It was a reminder that strength isn't always about size or numbers, but about confidence, skill, and the willingness to stand up for what's right. The rest of the day passed uneventfully. Marcus returned home, spent some time with his family, and later that evening, he sat down to plan his next self-defense class. He knew that there were people out there who needed to learn how to protect themselves, just as he had done. And if his encounter with the bikers had taught him anything, it was that there would always be a need for people who were willing to stand up to bullies, no matter the odds. As the sun set and the streetlights flickered on, Marcus couldn't help but smile. It had been a good day, peaceful day, and for a man like Marcus that was all he could ask for. The bikers, meanwhile, had learned their lesson. They rode back to their clubhouse in silence, their usual bravado replaced by a newfound respect for the man they had underestimated. They didn't talk about what had happened, but the memory of Marcus's calm demeanor and swift actions stayed with them. It was a humbling experience, one that made them think twice about their actions and the kind of men they wanted to be. In the days that followed, the neighborhood remained quiet. The bikers kept to themselves, and Marcus continued his daily walks, always alert but never afraid. Life went on as it always does, but the events of that day served as a reminder that even in the most peaceful of places, there is always the potential for conflict. And sometimes, it takes just one person to stand up and make a difference. As the weeks turned into months, Marcus's reputation grew. People in the neighborhood began to recognize him, not just as the man who had stood up to the bikers, but as someone who was willing to help others. He started offering free self-defense classes at the local community center, teaching people how to protect themselves and their loved ones. His classes were always full, and his students ranged from young children to elderly women. Marcus didn't care who they were or where they came from. He just wanted to make sure that they had the tools they needed to stay safe. The bikers, too, began to change. They still rode their motorcycles and wore their leather jackets, but they were no longer the menacing presence they had once been. They started volunteering at the community center, helping out with events and even attending some of Marcus's classes. It was a strange turn of events, but one that Marcus welcomed. He knew that people could change, and he was glad to see that the bikers were trying to be better. As the years passed, the story of Marcus and the bikers became something of a legend in the neighborhood. It was a story of redemption, of second chances, and of the power of one person to make a difference. Marcus never sought out the spotlight, but he couldn't deny that his actions had had a ripple effect, touching the lives of everyone around him. And so life went on. The sun continued to rise and set, the seasons changed, and the neighborhood remained a peaceful place. But every now and then, when the air was still and the streets were quiet, people would remember the day that Marcus had stood up to the bikers. It was a reminder that even in the most ordinary of places, extraordinary things can happen, and that sometimes all it takes is one person to change the course of history. As the years rolled by, Marcus's influence in the neighborhood only grew stronger. His self-defense classes became a cornerstone of the community, drawing people from all walks of life. Teenagers, mothers, elderly couples, and even former bikers. Everyone found something valuable in his teachings. Marcus didn't just teach them how to throw a punch or block an attack. He taught them confidence, discipline, and the importance of standing up for oneself without resorting to unnecessary violence. His philosophy was simple. Strength isn't about hurting others. It's about protecting what matters. The bikers, now a reformed group, became an unexpected ally in Marcus's mission. Their leader, who once sneered at Marcus from atop his motorcycle, now went by the name Bear and had become one of Marcus's most dedicated students. Bear had taken the lesson from that fateful day to heart. He realized that his gang's intimidating presence had done nothing but spread fear, and he wanted to make amends. Under Marcus's guidance, Bear and his crew began organizing community cleanups, charity rides, and even self-defense workshops for at-risk youth. The sight of burly bikers teaching kids how to defend themselves became a common one, and it brought a sense of unity to the neighborhood that hadn't been there before. One crisp autumn afternoon, Marcus was walking through the park, the same park where he often held his classes. The leaves had turned shades of gold and red, and the air carried the faint scent of wood smoke. As he strolled, he noticed a group of teenagers gathered near the basketball court. They were loud and rowdy, but there was an edge to their behavior that made Marcus pause. He recognized one of them, a kid named Jamal who had attended his classes a few times but had stopped coming. Jamal was arguing with another boy, and the tension was palpable. Marcus approached cautiously, his instincts telling him that things were about to escalate. "Everything all right here?" he asked, his voice calm but firm. Jamal turned to him, his face a mix of anger and frustration. "This guy's been talking trash all day, Marcus. I'm about to shut him up." The other boy, a wiry kid with a cocky grin, stepped forward. "Yeah? You in what army?" Marcus stepped between them, holding up his hands. Whoa, let's take a breath. You both look like you've got something to prove, but fighting isn't the way to do it." Jamal clenched his fists. "You don't understand, Marcus. He's been disrespecting me all week. I can't just let that slide." Marcus nodded. "I get it, but trust me, fighting him won't solve anything. It'll just make things worse. Why don't you come to class tomorrow? We'll work on some techniques to help you handle situations like this without throwing a punch. The other boy scoffed. Class? What, you think you're some kind of hero or something? Marcus turned to him, his gaze steady. No, I'm not a hero. But I've been where you are. I know what it's like to feel like you've got something to prove. But let me tell you something. Real strength isn't about proving you're tough. It's about knowing when to walk away. The boy hesitated, his bravado faltering under Marcus's calm demeanor. After a moment, he shrugged and walked away, muttering under his breath. Jamal watched him go, his fists still clenched, but the anger in his eyes had begun to fade. Thanks, Marcus, he said quietly. I don't know how to deal with guys like that. Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. You'll figure it out. But you don't have to do it alone. Come back to class. We'll work on it together. Jamal nodded, and Marcus could see the tension in his shoulders begin to ease. It was a small victory, but one that reminded Marcus why he did what he did. Every person he helped, every conflict he diffused, was a step toward making the world a little better. As the years passed, Marcus's legacy continued to grow. His self-defense classes evolved into a full-fledged community center, offering everything from martial arts training to counseling services. The bikers, now fully integrated into the community, became regular volunteers, their intimidating presence replaced by a genuine desire to help others. Bear even started a mentorship program for troubled teens, using his own experiences to guide them toward a better path. Marcus himself remained a humble figure, never seeking recognition or praise. He was content knowing that he had made a difference, not just in his own life, but in the lives of countless others. His days were filled with teaching, mentoring, and spending time with his family. He had found a sense of peace that he had never thought possible. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Marcus sat on his porch, a cup of coffee in hand. The neighborhood was quiet, the only sound the distant laughter of children playing in the park. Bear walked up the driveway, his leather jacket replaced by a simple hoodie, and joined Marcus on the porch. You ever think about how far we've come? Bear asked, his voice tinged with nostalgia. Marcus smiled. Every day. It's funny, isn't it? How one moment can change everything. Bear nodded. Yeah. If it weren't for you, I'd probably still be out there causing trouble. Instead, I'm here trying to make a difference. It's a good feeling. Marcus took a sip of his coffee, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It is. And it's not just us, It's everyone in this neighborhood. They've all played a part in making this place what it is. Bear chuckled. Yeah, but you're the one who started it all. You're the reason we're here. Marcus shook his head. No, Bear. I just showed you what was possible. You're the one who chose to change. That's on you. The two men sat in silence for a while, watching as the first stars began to appear in the night sky. It was a peaceful moment, one that felt like the culmination of everything they had worked for. The neighborhood was safe, the community was strong, and the future looked brighter than ever. As the years turned into decades, Marcus's story became a legend, not just in the neighborhood, but in the city as a whole. People would tell the tale of the former Marine who had stood up to a gang of bikers and changed their lives forever. But Marcus never saw himself as a hero. To him, he was just a man who had chosen to do the right thing one step at a time. And in the end, that was all that mattered. As the story of Marcus and the biker spread, it became more than just a tale of redemption. It became a source of inspiration for countless people. Many who heard the story wondered how they could make a difference in their own communities, how they could stand up to challenges and turn adversity into opportunity. And so, I want to ask you, the audience, what would you do if you were in Marcus's shoes? How would you handle a situation where you were faced with intimidation or injustice? Would you stand your ground? Or would you walk away? More importantly, what steps could you take to make your own neighborhood a safer, stronger place? This story is a reminder that change starts with one person, one decision, one act of courage. And just like Marcus, you have the power to make a difference. But you don't have to do it alone. If you're inspired by this story and want to hear more tales of courage, resilience, and community, I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. By subscribing, you'll join a community of people who believe in the power of storytelling to inspire change. You'll get access to more stories like this one, as well as tips, discussions, and insights on how to make a positive impact in your own life and the lives of others. So what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and let's continue this journey together. because every story matters, and every voice counts. Let's create a world where courage, kindness, and community are at the forefront. See you on the channel.